Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Courtside with Beilinson Tennis, part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. While Steve and myself took a week off, tennis definitely did not take a week off. Steve, there was a lot going on, and before we get to some of the biggest names in the game right now, there's a lot of news going on. Unfortunately, some of it is off court instead of on court, but busy 2 weeks since we last recorded.
Yeah, it's been a great 2 weeks and stirring up interest for Wimbledon. A bunch of tournaments that just concluded today. It's been a very enjoyable stretch.
So we're recording this Sunday late afternoon. This morning, a report came out that Andy Murray was out of Wimbledon. It was going on for maybe a couple hours before that statement then got retracted. People in their camp were not happy that that was leaked. They said that's not true. Um, if he is out at Wimbledon, that could be devastating because we don't know if we'd ever see Andy play at Wimbledon again. Let's hope there is a chance that he can play.
Yeah, as long as he's healthy. I mean, you don't want to see him go out there and have to retire at 4-2 down in the first set against his first round opponent. But assuming that he's healthy enough to get through a completed match, win or lose, that's certainly the way he would want to go out at his favorite tournament, where he made such incredible history by winning it twice in 2013 and again in 2016. So that's what I hope. A healthy Murray. Otherwise, the alternative, sadly, would be better not to play than to play hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. And the timing is right. I just got my magazine in the mail yesterday, Steve. You wrote a very nice article on Andy, and you said Andy Murray should have absolutely no regrets. That was the title of your article in the USPTA Advantage article. And you do a good job of explaining, yes, he had to compete with the big three, but he still should have absolutely no regrets. And he held his own, even against those big three.
No, he did. What's interesting is if you look at it, he won two Olympic gold medals and he won three majors. At his first two majors, he beat Novak in the finals of both. The five setter at the U.S. Open in 2012, and then straight sets in the Wimbledon final of 2013. And also at the Olympics, the first of those Olympics, he beat Novak in the semis. So he had some very big wins. Obviously, overall, Novak had the clear cut edge over him and beat Andy in four Australian finals, one French final to offset the two losses at Wimbledon and the Open. But those were very significant wins. And, considering what he was up against, David, that he always had to go through those guys, I'm glad that it wasn't a case where he came away with one major. Two women, that's first rate work.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I enjoyed the article. So thank you for writing that. Novak Djokovic, right? He had surgery and everyone thought he was going to be out of Wimbledon. He was still hoping to play the Olympics on schedule, but now he's over there starting to hit and run and practice a bit. So there's a chance Novak has not been completely ruled out of Wimbledon as well.
Well, what I found interesting, David, no, he isn't ruling it out. He apparently got in touch with Taylor Fritz, who had basically the same injury, that meniscus, back in 21. And his happened at the French, and he was able to play Wimbledon, get through a couple of rounds. So I think Djokovic wanted to feel Taylor out a bit on that about what he went through. And Fritz was quoted as saying he thought it was possible. Obviously, it was different because Fritz was thinking only at that stage it'd be great to win a few matches. Obviously, Novak doesn't want to go there to win two matches. He'd want to feel like he could get through seven. So, but I think that gave him some cautious optimism. We'll see where it goes from here. I think he'll make a wise choice. He doesn't feel like he's in a position to go all out and win his eighth Wimbledon, then I don't think he's playing. But if he does, he'll really give it a go. And obviously, he's a physical phenomena. I mean, there's no disrespect to Taylor Fritz, but he's not Taylor Fritz. So in his mind, he must feel like I can take it that extra step. And I think Fritz essentially feels the same way. So it's going to be interesting. I hope for the sake of the tournament, just as we hope that Murray can be healthy enough to at least get through a completed match. I'd like to see a revitalized Djokovic who managed to win those two five setters to reach the quarters of the French before having to pull out, that he'd be able to really go full tilt at Wimbledon.
We're not going to play spoiler here, Steve, but As most tennis fans know, if not all tennis fans, the Amazon Prime documentary on Roger Federer came out to the public a couple days ago. I know we both watched it. We're not going to give away anything because we want to respect the people who have not seen it. We'll talk in general about it just real briefly. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it because they showed some stuff in the locker room. We as we say they peeled behind the curtain a little bit, and there were things that you normally don't see. And even in your unbelievable career, Steve, you've seen some things that the public don't see. You've seen a lot of things that the public don't see, but there are still things in that locker room that that's a treasured place for the players, and that's private. And this documentary, you were able to see some really good conversations, and it wasn't just Roger and Rafa. Sure, there was stuff on the Roger and Rafa relationship, but did I felt, in my opinion, the documentary did not overdo it on the Roger Rafa relationship. You saw Roger mixing in communications, talking with plenty of other players during the Laver Cup experience. You got a good look at his family as well. So all in
Well,
all, I really enjoyed it. What'd you think?
yeah, no, I mean, you watched it all. I'm about midway through, but what I liked from what I saw was the way they set it up in the beginning. I don't think we're giving too much away to say that obviously it's focused on his retirement, the announcements of his retirement, and Laver Cup as his last event. But I enjoyed the scenes of his father and mother coming in to greet him behind the scenes, his manager Tony Godsick and Tony's wife Mary Jo Fernandez. There were a lot of nice behind the scenes moments there, and his kids. We got glimpses of his kids in a way that we had never quite seen before. That was a lot of fun too. So I think they set it up beautifully. The early stages of the documentary are excellent.
I got a kick out of this, and when they showed Mary Jo Fernandez, if I remember it correctly, it said under her name friend. I'm like, okay, first of all, she's an unbelievable tennis professional player, and she's Tony Gottsik's wife. Like they could have given her another name, but
Yeah,
it was funny how they said that. I just got a chuckle out of that.
yeah, I suppose they were trying to downplay it, but that was kind of interesting to see her there because she's always been very professional in doing her work for ESPN and not trying to serve as a cheerleader for Roger and basically staying away from that. But then we see her from time to time, like sitting in the royal box when Roger played Novak in the 2019 Wimbledon final and able to be there as a friend and not as a commentator. She separated the two very well, but yeah, they could have. She certainly had more credentials than they gave her.
Right. um, all right. This is interesting, though. If Novak doesn't play, the last time there was a Wimbledon without Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic was in 1998. And by the way, you'll know the answer to this, but I'll ask you anyway. Guess who won the junior title that year in 1998?
Yeah, it's initials RF. I mean, yeah, that would be sad though. I mean, you want to hope that Rafa chose not to play. He could have actually played this year, but wisely thought, no, I've been playing I've come back. I've got to be careful. My body's a little better. He felt like he was in pretty good shape, even though he lost his Erevan straight at the French. He felt his body was coming round, so he wants to save himself for the Olympics. Or else we might have had Rafa for another go at Wimbledon. And then for Novak, considering what a dominant force he's been in recent years, you go back to the run that he started in 2018, winning in 2018, 2019. There was no tournament in 20. He won again in 21 and 22. So he had won four in a row before losing the final last year to Alcaraz in five. So it would be sad in that sense that has been, next to Australia, aside from Australia, where he's won a major. So I certainly hope he's able to play. But it sounds to me as we talk, it almost sounds like 50-50 maybe at best.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know which way it's gonna fall. So your guess is as good as mine. I was talking, and we've had this person on our show before, Amy Lundy, and we become friends and we text back and forth. And she has a show with Gil Gross and Joel Drucker. Also, it's part of the Tennis Channel podcast network. Their show is called Three, a tennis show. Shout out Tennis Channel Podcast Network. And we've talked about it previously. Other tennis fans have talked about the big three on the WTA tour, and they talk about it being Iga, Sabalenka, and Rybakina. And they had an interesting take on it. And I agree with it. They said that there's really a big one right now in the WTA Tour, and that's Iga Swiatek. The big three, or the next three, would be Rybakina, Sabalenka, and Coco. And they went into depth in the discussion. I encourage people to listen to that, the entire episode, obviously, but we're talking about that specific segment. They made a really strong case for it, and it's interesting. I hadn't really heard it from that angle before, and I agree with it.
Well, I agree and disagree, and I'll tell you why. And I, by the way, don't get me wrong, all three I respect immensely. All three of the people you just mentioned, and Gil Gross and Joel Drucker and Amy are terrific. No, I just mean where I may disagree is that Iga, and I think it's inevitable it will happen. But look where she is right now. Four of the five majors are in Roland Garros. She's got one U.S. Open. She's never won Wimbledon or come close. She's never won the Australian. She's had a lot of consistency and dominant stretches and a clear-cut world number one, but she hasn't become that dominant force on all surfaces yet. So yeah, it's no doubt that her status is higher than any of the others and
Her
considered.
resume at this point, too.
Yeah, her resume is, but I still want to see Iga establish herself more comprehensively on the other surfaces, which, as I say, I think it's inevitable, but so far it's just the one Open, and we haven't seen anything great from her yet at Wimbledon or the Australian. It's going to happen because
And
I
her
think,
resume, I mean, when you group the people together, her resume has set her apart from the other three, I would say.
yeah, it has. But I think what's interesting about the others is I look at Sabalenka and I think I mean, we'll see what happens to her going forward. I feel like she's almost equally comfortable on all surfaces. When she's disciplined and when her game is clicking, it can work anywhere. And I think I feel kind of the same way about Rybakina, who's surprisingly good on clay, and so I look and Coco, we'll see. Coco, it obviously she has that one major at the Open last year. We want to see where it goes from here. I'm encouraged, and women's tennis, she's the pace setter. She's the best player in the world by far. But I do want to see that next step of supremacy everywhere. On all the services and a multi majors at all the majors. It'll happen. But so far, she has struggled, especially at Wimbledon and Australia. At least she does have one U.S. Open title.
And we're gonna get back to well, I'll throw this out there right now. I mean, Rybakina, this is now, I think, what, the fourth tournament that she's withdrew from with an illness, not a physical injury, I believe. What it was like Dubai, Indian Wells, Rome, and now Berlin. Um, this is something that's starting to become concerning. I mean, it's one thing if you have physical injuries, but this is more of an illness type related deal.
No, it's kind of a mystery. I'm not. I don't mean a mystery in any kind of a dark sense. A mystery in the sense that there's this looks like a supremely fit athlete with a great physique and who can win the most demanding of three-set matches. And yet, why does this keep happening over and over again? It sounds as if she needs a major health exam to try to get to the bottom of what might be causing the illnesses. I don't know whether she's done it. I would have thought she would have done it, but I haven't heard that for sure. But it sounds like she needs something like that so that there's some kind of a preventative plan here. So, if there's some stomach issue, for instance, maybe she changes her diet. Maybe they put her on an entirely different diet, but something is bringing it about and it's getting in her way. And she's a great player. I don't want to see her stymied by her health letting her down as flagrantly as it has so far.
Right. No. We all agree. It's just a shame that this keeps reoccurring. Um, let's stay on the WTA side because a player who just came back from injury had quite a week and beat Coco Gauff in a close semifinal match. And that is Jessica Pegula winning a big title, her first one back since injury. So kudos to Jess.
Yeah, I think it was. She had a great week. I think it was such a psychologically it had to be so rewarding because it had been a tough stretch and she sounded apparently in addition to the injury she felt a bit burnt out and now she's back with gusto and the Coco match was very well played. She won the first set 7-5 in the semis yesterday after not being able to serve it out at 5-4. She broke right back, closed out the set, then went down 5-2 second set came back and got that into a tiebreaker where she was up 3-1 when suddenly the rain came out of nowhere and they were forced to come back today. That's awfully hard to sleep on a match like that, but she managed to wrap it up very swiftly today, 7 points to 2 in the tiebreak. Only had to play 5 points to finish that match off, then came back and won.
Hey, sorry about that. We lost Steve for a second, and I think it's on my end. So it's happened a couple times. I apologize. We're looking into it. So you know how it is. Uh Technology, but we're back. I know, Steve, we were talking about the 3-1 lead in the second set with Jessica and Coco. Had to sleep on it, won it pretty quickly, and then she played the final and then continue on.
Yeah, no, I mean, she had to sleep on it, having made a great second set comeback. She'd won the first 7-5 over Coco. She's down 5-2 in the second, goes up 3-1 in the tiebreak, close to closing it out. That's when the rain came yesterday. Today, wrapped it up 7 points to 2 in that tiebreak. Didn't have to go through any unnecessary duress, and it was a well-deserved straight set win over her friend, Coco Gauff. And that put her in the final against Kalinskaya. And Jess served for the first set in that final. Only had, I think, 20-minute break, not a long break before the final. Came right back. Should have probably won the first set, but didn't serve it out at 5-3 and lost the tiebreak where she didn't win a point. Won the second 6-4, but then late in the third was where all the drama flooded through the arena, you might say, because it was 4-5, Jess serving, saves 4 match points, Pegula did there, then gets back even, but at 5-6 has to save another with a service winner down the tee and gets into the tiebreak. And then at one point, all in the tiebreak, David, you could see her kind of squinting up into the sun a bit and double folded. So went down the mini break 2-1, lost one more point the rest of the way, won at 7 points to 3, played impeccably the rest of the way after going down the mini break. So that, I think, was a very gratifying win for her, given that she's had injuries and a little burnout and just that the early part of the season not gone her way, coaching changes.
What'd
She
she say?
looked a lot.
5 or 6 match points in this one, right? 5 or 6
No,
match points.
five, five, four of them in the 4-5 game, and then one more in 5-6. So that was, that was clutch on her part. She just went into the lockdown mode on all the match points and refused. And then the nice little comeback from 1-2 in the tiebreak to close it out 7 points to 3. So I think that should carry her into Wimbledon with a fair amount of confidence, by the way. And maybe now she can break that quarterfinal syndrome that she's been caught in, never getting past the quarters of the majors. And this might be the moment. This might be the time. She's certainly coming in on a high after winning this tournament. A great win for Pegula.
Yeah, no, let's see how it happens in Wimbledon. And then we'll switch it over to Tommy Paul, who we talked about several times. He loses to Sebi Korda 2 weeks ago in the Netherlands. And then he beats him in the semis in Queens. Sebi rolled his ankle very late. It was actually against set point against him in the first set. That was kind of scary because Sebi's been dealing with injuries. We're glad that he was able to keep playing. He already sent a picture on social media that he's at Wimbledon. So thankfully he's good because he's dealt with too many injuries. But Sebi is always dangerous on grass. But Tommy Paul winning the title now. He won it. He won the match, beat Musetti today. Um, New number one, American. I don't know if I'm there with him on grass. I think Taylor may be a little bit better than Tommy on grass if I had to, pick one or two. But we're both huge fans of Tommy Paul, and I love that he won it, and I hope he continues to have great results.
I think the best thing about his game, David, is that I don't at this point I'm not sure the surface matters that much. We know how great he is on hard court. You might
So
say
good
that,
point. Such a good point, Steve.
yeah, and he's very good on clay, surprisingly good on clay. And now he records his first ATP 500 tournament triumph on grass, and he had good wins, David, because Draper, of course, had the left-hander had knocked off Carlos,
Yeah.
the defending champion. Great win for Draper, who then loses to Tommy in three. And then you mentioned the win over Corda that Tommy Paul had. And then finally today against Musetti, he looked like it was going to be clear cut 6-1, 5-4 serves for the match. Couldn't close him out there and then won a very tense tiebreak to finish it off. So I
Yeah, it
just
got
feel like
dicey at the end there. It got real dicey at the end.
dicey because a couple of match points eluded him. He then had to save a set point and he finally closed it out. but that could have been very dangerous because if that set got away, and you said he is such an emotional player
Hot and
and
cold, right? Hot and
very
cold.
hot and cold. He's very Italian that way, and I think he'd be the first to admit it. But he might have been very tough to stop in a third set if he'd been given that new lease on life. But Tommy didn't allow him to do it. So I just feel like he's now at the stage where he feels he can win on anything. Uh, Taylor, we know how good he can be on grass. He had a disappointing Queens, though. So I just think, look, they're both going to go on. They're both going to get a lot accomplished over the summer. So is Ben Shelton coming back. He'll get back to his finest form that we saw from strong summer from Shelton that we as what we saw in 23. And then, as you mentioned with Korda, with the two grass court tournaments in a row, he did very well 2 weeks in a row here on the grass. And I hope if he stays healthy, maybe he finally starts pushing instead of lingering around 20 in the world, or maybe we can get him pushing toward the top 10. But it's very encouraging what's going on with Tommy Paul, who had his woes early in the year with the injuries. And now he's come back so strong, and I like where he's headed.
Yeah, and again, he was close to winning that Indian Wells tournament. I mean, he was close to beating Medvedev in the semi before turning his
Yeah,
ankle.
but
Hey,
he
we're
was.
gonna we're gonna end this because I'm worried we're gonna lose you for a minute again. So we're gonna wrap this up. The next time we record, we'll have more clarity on who's playing, whether Novak, whether Andy. We'll obviously talk about a plethora of other players, but the next time we record, we'll probably have the Wimbledon draw out and again more clarity on who's able to compete. So Steve, that being said, thanks for joining. Sorry everybody for a couple times Steve froze up. We're going to try to look into that. We need a higher technology budget, I think, Steve. So, um, with that, I appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you, David.